if everybody is capable of doing everything, it's just fucking boring. Have your style, and how your style complements my style or clashes with my style is what makes our match interesting.
Rewind, Recap, Relive. For over 50 episodes, the revolutionary force in wrestling interview.
Our first guest is a Brooklyn native. He's wrestled for about 5 years now in promotions like Invictus, BWF, just to name a few. Please welcome Machine Gun Money, DOMINICK DENARO.
What's going on, gentlemen?
How's it going? It's awesome to have you here. Our next guest, absolute veteran of the ring. I mean, he's competed in Pro Wrestling Noah, New Japan, ROH, WWE, and most recently AEW. Please welcome, with the most educated feet, in my opinion, in pro wrestling, Bobby Fish.
Educated and stinky.
Yeah. Well, it's really cool to have you here, Bobby. You know, I can't help but mention, we're filming this on Thursday right now. Last night, what did we witness? You know, we saw you, Kyle O'Reilly, and Adam Cole seemingly put an end to the Undisputed Elite, and I just want to know why. Why'd you do it?
That bridge needed to be burned. There's way too much history there between the individuals involved for bygones to remain bygones. So it had to be done.
And of course, Hangman Adam Page, he thwarted that assault. But did you or Adam or any of you see the kid in the crowd that's going viral now from that?
I had quite a few people after that send pictures of that to me, and then I've definitely seen it online since. So yeah, you can't help but I'd like to say I feel bad, but I'd be lying.
So I'm assuming anyone in the trios tournament is going to have to watch out for you three, or
I'm not sure really what's going on with the trios at the moment. We thought naturally we would be in that, but at the moment I don't really have confirmation on in or out.
Well, we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah.
Dominic, to throw it to you, as I said, fellow New Yorker, really cool to have you here. And I want to start at the beginning, that moment in your life when wrestling went from just an interest to you actually wanting to take a leap into it. What was that like for you? What was that journey like?
So, all right. The moment that I decided I want to become a professional wrestler and the moment I actually did it were very far apart. So I was on the phone when I was like 22 years old with Johnny Rods, and we talked for a few hours on the phone. And my two life goals was to direct a movie and to have a professional wrestling match. So I was up here on which one I wanted to do. So I ended up going with the film school, and I got my associates at New York Film Academy, and I worked in the film industry for a little while. And then I was about 29, and I wasn't doing the film thing anymore. I was just working construction, and I went to one of these pay-per-view viewings in the cities. You know, what's that place they do it at? Jack Dempsey's, or is that?
I think that's one of. I mean, there's a few. Is it one of the independent like film studios down there?
No, there's a bar in the city that does
a bar.
Like live.
Yeah.
Live.
Yeah, that sounds right.
I just went in on a whim with my friend, and I got to talking to some of these local guys, and you know, they said, "Hey, there's a school in Queens," and it was actually called Fight the World Wrestling, and we shared the building with House of Glory. So I went in, and the trainer, my trainer, his name was the Grim Reaper, and we just clicked, man. So like I was like, I love this dude, and I want to be around this dude, and I want to learn from him. So I just stuck around, and gradually I got it, and they put me on the scene, and you know, I never looked back.
That's awesome. A really cool journey. I love it. Bobby, were those two moments far apart for you as well? The actually wanted to become a pro wrestler and doing it. Do you resonate with that at all?
Not that far apart. Under a year, I would think. I read, so I happened upon the Dynamite Kid's autobiography, and when I was a kid, I was a huge fan. But without the internet and stuff at that time, when he disappeared from WWF TV, like I kind of lost track of him and had no idea the career that he had previous and then after in Japan and other stuff. And I happened to see his book on a shelf in a FYE, and I was on the road working for a marketing company at the time. So I had a chance to read it. And when I did, you know, a lot of it is kind of a precautionary tale, like as far as the way his, you know, stuff went down. But it was at a time when like Tough Enough was popular. And so a bit of how you would get into the wrestling business was exposed much more than it had ever been when I was growing up. I wanted to play football, but you know, I was always a fan of wrestling. It wasn't like my lifelong dream, but after reading that book, I kind of had a little bit of a roadmap and knew, and then watching Tough Enough or things like that, knew like, okay, I got to find somebody to train me, and then I could do it. I didn't know if I definitely wanted to. But once I found somebody, and I found a guy in Newburgh, New York, Tony DeVito, used to work for ECW. And once I found Tony and started making trips 3-4 times a week to him, it just kind of rolled from there, and you get bit with the bug, and then like you're sick.
Would you commute by car, or would you take the bus? Or train?
No, I did. I drove at the time. I think I was bartending to, you know, pay the bills, and I would work. Oh man, the bars where I'm from in Albany were open till 4 a.m. So it was like work, get home at 5, catch a couple hours, and then get on the road and go do some wrestling training.
And along with Tony DeVito, of course, you're trained by Harley Race as well. Very known. I've heard you talk about that a lot and how much that meant and helped your career. Both of those men. What would you say some of those tactics you took away from them were that you still use today?
So there was a lot of things with Tony that didn't make sense to me at the time. But I made a point to reach out to him years after when they did make sense, and just, or little things that I would pick up from just seeing other people not cross the T's and dot the I's, that like I was fortunate enough to get those little directions. And there were too many to mention with Tony. One specifically I will point out was Tony was adamant about, you know, you'll see guys kind of go through the motions with certain, how do I put it, certain series of things that happen in a professional wrestling ring. And he was just always very on top of, like, there's a way to present it visually and it needs to look this way. And there were a lot of tricks of the trade that he handed over to me, like I said, years later, that made so much sense once I was in the application process of these things, that it was awesome. And I realized at that point, like, how thorough my training was.
And it all just really clicked. Yeah. Dominic, really same question for you. Any tactics that you're really employing now? And have you experienced that now that you're actually able to put them to use? The same thing that Bobby was just talking about, they make more sense.
Oh, absolutely. Whenever I see my trainer on the road, I'm always like calling back to things that he showed me in training that I never really got to implement until years later, like post-COVID and stuff like that. And then I was just, oh, wait a minute, that's something that Grim taught me, you know, like,
yeah,
little things, you know. It's not always the moves, and it's a way you carry yourself, and like how Bobby says, the way you cross your T's and dot your I's, and just presentation,
Yeah, and you just mentioned, so with the coronavirus, you started in 2017 really wrestling. So what was that like to hit that dead stop?
Like, I took it just like everybody else. At first, we didn't know what was going to happen to pro wrestling, if it was just going to go away or not. Me and a couple of my friends, we kind of like put our brains together and just was actually a graduate from Tony DeVito as well. His name is Tony Fatu, and he owned a professional wrestling ring. So I had my hand at like producing a couple of shows that you could find on YouTube. You know, we just did in my yard, but like we put like some production value behind it and used actual workers from the local scene, and really try to put like a story together and stuff like that. So it was a good experiment, you know. But
that's really cool. No,
I'm glad that is over with. Normal, because I couldn't take those studio shows with no fans, you know. It's like, who are we doing this for?
No, absolutely. Your film experience probably helped you a lot with that production value you put into that, though. It's really cool. Give you the edge. Yeah. Bobby, I've heard you say that when you took that first trip out to Japan for Noah in your career, that you felt like you really made it. That was one of the first moments that you felt like professional wrestling could be something that you made a career out of. And I'm interested to hear for you what it felt like when that contract was actually extended, and really, who was the first person you told?
When it came to Noah, there was a little bit of confusion as far as what I was going there for. So I had got my connection through Harley to go to Noah, and they saw me when I was working for Harley, and they were interested, and I thought I was going over to continue. I was working at that point, but definitely just indies, and I thought I was going over to continue training, and it was a 3-month stay. And when I got my flight itinerary, it was like maybe 3 weeks. So I thought there was a mistake, and I called Harley, and Harley didn't really know. And it wasn't until I got there that I realized, like, oh no, this is a 3-week tour. So actually, like, let's say I got there on a Tuesday, that Wednesday night, I was working my first match on Japanese TV in Korakuen Hall. So, you know, it was a positive surprise, but a surprise less. And then I realized, like, as the tour went on, the Japanese boys, they were the ones. The way that they reacted to me was what clued me into the idea that, oh, okay, I'm here just to work. So, like, I'm getting paid. I'm on TV. I'm, you know, like, my accommodations are all taken care of. Like, I thought at first I was going over to stay in the dojo, but I went right on the road and started working, and nothing was ever, you know, and it stayed that way the entire 8 years or so that I worked for Noah.
Wow. And so with that feeling, I mean, that's so still so young in your career. I'm assuming you had a lot of conversation with Harley and Tony about that.
Yeah, Harley, there was a bit of confusion at the time. And Harley, I mean, you know, Harley was on in years at that point, but he was still, like, on top of bookings and stuff, and he didn't really know either. So I don't know if it was a language barrier thing, which at this point, experience with Japan, I don't think that that's what it was, because there's, you know, they find a way around those things. I think it was just confusion with the office, and that they assumed, I think at that time, that I was maybe more experienced than I was. I don't know. They didn't see me as, and they also, you know, interestingly enough, at that point, I had been working independents under, like, a worked name. And Bobby Fish is my real name.
Yeah.
And that they knew me. So that's how they booked me. And they had already booked media and stuff. So that was actually how I started using my real name. And I just never
Oh,
changed
that's
it.
actually really cool. There, because I know, was it the Jerkin Jerkin Jackson, right? Was that the one you were using?
Jerk Jackson, yeah. Yeah. It's an oldie but a goodie.
Yeah, right. For Dominic, you're doing such great work now, and I see you popping up at so many promotions, especially around here. When that moment clicked that you started getting booking after booking, and what did that feel like for you?
I mean, my first year, I was thrown into the fire. I was
Yeah.
always around ring rentals. I was always around shows helping out. I probably had 100 matches in my first year. Just from also going to CZW Dojo Wars and stuff like that. So I was racking up the matches in my first couple of years. I was getting the experience. Then after COVID, it took me a little time to get back on my feet. I told myself 2022 I was going to take as many bookings as I possibly can in the tri-state area and just hone my skills and stuff like that. And then 2023 I'd venture out and I'd try to get to more states. And I've been doing pretty good. I've been wrestling at least 7 to 10 times a month. I'm getting a healthy income from it, and I'm learning a lot. I'm in the right places. I'm around the right locker rooms, and I'm just more than grateful to just have what I have right now, these opportunities.
Nearly 400 matches, you said, right?
Oh,
you mentioned that at some point. Wow.
Yeah, I lost count after a while. I was writing them down for the first 2.5 years, and then got a new phone, and there was no recovery. I'm not going to retract that.
Bobby, were you ever writing them down at one point?
No, I always thought that I would, but I never did. And it wasn't, I think it was Jericho mentioned it in his book, one of his books. And while I was reading that, I think I had the thought of oh, I should have done that, but it just didn't occur to me.
Oh, I get it. Well, when it comes to your style, Bobby, I want to transition because you have a very distinct one. We mentioned most educated feed, very striking, MMA influenced. And I'm curious if any of that was altered or aided to when you went to Japan that you put to use now, or was that always just what your style was even before Noah?
I'll say I think you got to get to a certain point career-wise or just in your journey wise to where you can really start to apply your flavor to what we do. And I don't know if it's the process of learning to a certain threshold of how to do just straight up pro wrestling to when after that you can start to add the distinct spices that you might add. But I know that and I've seen it happen with other people where they try to add it too quickly. And I think that I did a little bit of that as well. I think, my influences when I first got to Japan and I had trained in martial arts from the time I was 8 years old. So I remember working for Noah and adding some of that stuff in. And if I were to go back and watch some of that stuff now, it would be cringeworthy because I just didn't have a strong enough handle on pro wrestling to add that stuff. But I didn't know that, and I probably couldn't have been told that either at the time. But that's what I would caution people about doing or not doing now. And I think I'm at a point now, obviously now, I mean, if it didn't happen by now, it's not going to happen. But I don't know exactly when it was, but I hit a point in my career where the martial arts stuff seemed to transition, and I found ways to make it more palatable within a pro wrestling ring, because some of that stuff does need to be tweaked, modified. And I think that's why you do see some people come over from mixed martial arts and them not be successful because they are too martial arts based. I think you have guys like Tom Lawler and Matt Riddle who do it very, very well. But I'm obviously biased to this person, my partner and one of my best friends. But Kyle O'Reilly is another guy that just the way he makes it seamless. And that's what I think you have to do if you're going to add that stuff. I think when you're not at that point and you start to add those things in, like me personally, and I'm a stickler for technique, but I spot it right away. And it's like, I can see they've been there or they haven't been. And I don't know. It's disappointing when the reps haven't been there because it's pro wrestling. You can literally paint the canvas with whatever colors you want. So why would you paint with a brush that isn't necessarily, yours? Like I don't, a guy like Ricochet is so athletic and whatever. And can I do and round offs and stuff? Yeah, I can, but are they going to look like his? No, they're not. So I'm probably going to shy away from some of that stuff where, like, I know I train Muay Thai and kickboxing and things like that. So I'm going to lean on that stuff because I know my stuff in that realm look better than most, if not all.
I love that. I mean, it's really like stick with what you know best, right?
I see that all the time. And like, sometimes I even see myself going like a little too MMA, and like, I get it. Like, I probably shouldn't be.
I'll add to that. I think one of the problems that I've noticed over my time in pro wrestling, especially like my generation of people coming, was you had a lot of guys that were able to do a lot of things. So you're able to check a lot of boxes. But the difference is we're not MMA.
Right.
MMA being competition, you have to check all the boxes or you're going to be exposed wherever your weaknesses are, wherever your holes are. Let's be honest about what pro wrestling is. Those boxes, if every pro wrestler on the card, let's say you got 10 guys in a locker room and all 10 guys are capable of doing just about everything. So you've got 10 guys checking all the same boxes. That's boring as fuck. Like yeah. Nobody wants to watch that. So if you're like, what the beauty in pro wrestling to me and what I liked watching it growing up was you had a Hulk Hogan, you had a Ric Flair, you had the Road Warriors, you had Dusty Rhodes, you had different body types and different athleticism and different, you had a guy like Ricochet, but if you're a guy like, Bam Bam Bigelow's size and you're capable of doing some of those things and you're doing them just because you can do them, I think you're prostituting our sport. Because let's face it, if this were competition, you wouldn't be able to get away with those things. Therefore, you wouldn't check some of those boxes and you stay closer to your lane because that's where you'd find success. Because so many of our variables are controlled, you can get a big guy can get away with trying to be a little bit more high flyer, et cetera, and vice versa. But if this were actual competition, that would not be. And I'm not saying it has to always be that way and that there aren't times when the exception can be the exception. But I stand by it. If everybody, and it took me a while to identify this because I had these thoughts for a while, but if everybody is capable of doing everything, it's just fucking boring. Right. Have your style and how your style complements my style or clashes with my style is what makes our match interesting.
It's the contrast that ends up complementing each other.
Yeah, I mean, it's if not everybody's doing everything, and at the end of the day, somebody's got to win, somebody's got to lose, somebody's got to be successful, somebody has to not be successful. So, like, let's not all go out and paint the canvas black. It just doesn't make any sense.
Moving along in your career, Bobby, to when you get to Ring of Honor. The first time you were in Ring of Honor, I'm curious, were you doing more of smaller scale matches? You weren't an actual member of the roster at that point?
Yeah, for sure. Like at the first few times I was there, I was one of Tony's guys. And then I went away and did indies for a few years. And I wasn't ready at that time, but you couldn't tell me that. And then a couple of darks and stuff when Gabe Sapolsky was booking. And, you know, truth be told, I wasn't ready. But you couldn't tell me that at the time. So I was out there trying. And then eventually one of the last time I went back and Delirious Hunter had the book. And that's, you know, true that I was ready when the timing was right. You know, those earlier ones, if I did get a job, which I was close a couple times, but if I got a job, I don't know, things would have went differently.
And so when you did walk into Ring of Honor for the second time, what was the mindset like then with so much experience now behind you?
So the last time when I did end up getting a job, I had a dark match. It was against QT Marshall, and I was at a bit of a crossroads in my life. My daughters had been born, and I had been doing the wrestling thing for a while. And, you know, I have a bachelor's degree, and you know, wrestling just, it was not paying the bills. And straight jobs, I had gone through a few of them, and I had a good opportunity to take kind of a regular 9-to-5 type of job. It was going to pay decent, you know, pay pretty well. Definitely a lot more than I was making wrestling at that time. And I was at that crossroads, and I remember going into that weekend, and it was like, okay, this is, I don't want to say make or break, but it was kind of like, okay, if things go well with Ring of Honor, I'll continue to do this the way I'm doing it. If things don't go well or don't go exactly how I'd like to see them going, then maybe I'll continue to wrestle, but I just won't put so much focus on it, and I'll just wrestle for the fun of it. And I'll take this job that would have had me busy. You know, I wouldn't have had the freedom really to go to Japan anymore. And that would have probably been it for actually trying to pursue this as a sole income.
And so that, obviously it went well. Being in Ring of Honor that time, you go on to form reDRagon, which I feel like is what a lot of fans know you, at least prior to NXT, knew your name from, of course, with Kyle O'Reilly. So what was that first time pairing up like?
So reDRagon, the teaming us together was Hunter's idea. And it was a way to bring me in. They were trying to split Kyle away from Davey Richards. And Eddie Edward and I had history, and Davey and Eddie were the American Wolves at the time. And so they had an idea to put Kyle and I together as a tag team to give the Wolves like a foil. And Davey and Kyle obviously had history. So it was a way to break Kyle away from Davey and give a reason for Davey and Eddie to team to get the Wolves back together. So we were just really fortunate in that way. Kyle and I knew each other previously, but we had never really talked about tagging. Both had similar interests when it came to, you know, we're both into martial arts and stuff like that. And truth be told, I've never had chemistry with another person professionally like I had with Kyle. And it was, I don't want to say instant, but it was within like maybe 2 or 3 matches, or even just segments, because I think we did like some kind of a segment where Kyle turned on Davey, and you know, the chemistry was pretty apparent right away.
I feel like when it comes to you guys, and you could add Adam Cole and Roderick Strong to the mix, it's like never trust you guys, right? Like there's so many turns that happen, including, you know, whether you go to last night, Ring of Honor, NXT.
We're real pieces of shit, the 4 of us.
Dominic, so I know you do tag team work as well.
I tend to lean towards tag team wrestling more. I think there's something different about it. I love the rules. I love working within the confine of the rules of a tag team match. The type of guy that you won't see burying the referee. You know, I like to, do everything within the rule limit, and find creative ways to cut down my opponents when they're not looking. I love the art of tag team wrestling, and me and my partner, I could say we do have chemistry. We don't have no reDRagon chemistry, but one day we will. But yeah, I just really enjoy it.
Bobby, I mean, I don't think there's anyone better to ask when it comes to tag team advice than you. Do you have any advice on forming that chemistry?
It would be hard advice-wise because it came so naturally with Kyle. But there was a lot of I don't know, maybe brainstorming of just people that influenced me. I was a big fan of tag team wrestling in general, but tag team specifically, and then just whatever your situation is, like that's what dictated a lot of what the influences Kyle and I started to introduce in the beginning, because we needed to be heels, and we were going to be the foil to the American Wolves. So we needed to be strong heels, and we needed to really be a certain type of heel. And so we borrowed a lot from Tully and Arn, Brainbusters, whatever you want to call them. And there was a lot of that sleight of hand in a way that could really showcase the Wolves, because that was what we were put together for in the beginning. And in the beginning as heels, your job and our job at that time, we took it as what it was, not necessarily for us. We understood that the best way for us to get over as heels is for the Wolves to look like they handed us our asses for 90% of the time that we were out there. And I just think that that's something that gets lost sometimes. And when it does get lost, it cuts the legs out of any real story that you're going to tell. So then now you're basically out there doing moves, and nobody really relates to moves. Like the people and as workers, we find the moves, and I'm one of these guys too. Like I focus on some of the moves sometimes, but it's like it's wasted energy, because most of the people watching, they don't really relate to a body slam or a suplex, or they don't know how any of that feels. They could maybe relate to a punch in the face, but I'd say majority of the population hasn't even really experienced that too often. So it's the story, and the story is what you remember. It's why we watch movies.
I think Triple H just said that in a podcast with Logan Paul the other day.
Oh yeah,
Impulsive.
Brilliant, and the time I spent learning under him, brilliant is the only real description I can attribute to that man when it comes to pro wrestling.
Dominic, so you said close to 400 matches in the span of about 5 years. So could you tell us about some of those meaningful ones for you mixed in there? There's so many, but which ones stand out for you?
Sure. Okay. So my first heavyweight title win was for the Bronx Wrestling Federation, and that was against TJ Marconi. And something about the Bronx was it was a dying federation. They would draw like 20 people, to their shows. You'd be lucky if you get paid $20 because there's no house. And over the course of a year, we turned the place around to have like consistent sellout shows where everybody was, making their money. We had compelling storylines, and I was just one of the guys that was always there, first one in, last one out, always training hard. So they decided to give me the bone, and they didn't tell me I was going to win. So I went in there understanding the assignment. I'm going to look good for a second, and then I'm done. They ended up, changing that around on me, and that was very meaningful for me because all my friends that always say they're going to come and never come just so happened to that one show. And they seen that I wasn't doing this for nothing. And that was very meaningful for me. It was only the Bronx, but, we went out with a bang because right after that, COVID started, and there went my ring. That's one. One this past, was it February or January, against Darius Carter for the Ace Diamond Division title. I had beaten him in a triple threat match in November of the past year. And I had a singles match with him early 2020, and I was not in shape, man. He took me into deep waters, and I just wasn't taking it seriously. And that was my wake-up call. And then after that, I just hit the gym every day. I was training 3 days a week. So when I got this match in 2022 with him, it meant the world to me because it was my chance to prove myself that I am taking this serious. And I thought I did a damn well good job of, holding my own and telling a story, and making those fans care. So I would say those two are my favorite matches as of right now.
No, that's huge. And you said the Bronx Wrestling Federation, right? That was a dying promotion when you did. How's it doing now?
It's dead.
Oh, it died.
After COVID, so it was like a weightlifting, a bodybuilding gym, and they also had a ring in there. And once COVID became a thing, the owners decided to just take the ring out, and that was the end of that. I mean, we moved on and had several incarnations. Our current one is called Project Codename Wrestling, but we're more based in New Jersey and not in New York. The goal is to try to get back to New York sometime in 2023 with that same promotion.
So you're working heavily with them, though? It sounds like, since it says you're saying we want to get it out there.
Yeah,
you have more of a role than just talent.
I definitely took a little bit of initiative backstage because I do want this to work. Me and the whole roster have been through a few different incarnations, through different promotions where we tried to get this going. And I believe in every single one of them. And I also believe in leaving no man behind. So I want to make sure that this works, not just for me, but for everyone involved. And I'm learning how to reach out for sponsorships and stuff like that to make sure we can cover the the cost of things so we can have these.
Oh, that's really commendable.
That goes into this besides what goes on in the ring, and I'm just trying to learn every aspect.
Bobby, did you ever have that type of thought process that you wanted to get into one of the promotions with more than just talent?
Yeah, I think certainly in my time in NXT, there were some conversations, and I think I'll remain in the wrestling business. I mean, we'll see what happens even after I'm done bumping. I mean, that's how I see it, and would certainly be happy with something after that. So yeah, I've certainly considered it, and yeah, I mean, it's commendable. You do want to learn as much of this as you can, because you never know where your next paycheck is coming from, so to speak. And the more hats you're capable of wearing, the more valuable you are to any organization that hires you as a performer or as office or as, I mean, Christ, as a popcorn vendor. It almost doesn't matter. So learn as much of it as you can. Yeah, for sure.
Well, Bobby, so you mentioned NXT, and of course, a lot of people, Undisputed Era, one of their favorite factions, I think, definitely one of mine. And if you could just tell us about getting that call to go to WWE, what that felt like, and really what the experience overall was like for you.
So coming up, similar to Ring of Honor and stuff, I think I had some brushes with WWE, did some darks, did some camps, did some this, did some that, and things. Quite a few of those opportunities seem to be going in a very positive direction. And then, for whatever reason, it didn't end up working out. So when this opportunity presented itself, and at that point we were negotiating with Ring of Honor. I was signing a deal with New Japan to work more there. We had been with New Japan for about 2 years. And when I say we, I'm talking Kyle and I specifically. So we were going to be over for New Japan more often. But in the midst of that, like, Kyle had a pretty solid offer to go to NXT, and there was talk headed my direction as well, but it was up and down as to what exactly that looked like. And in the end, guys like William Regal were integral parts of getting us sorted out there. And it became apparent to me that the interest was, not only real, but there was talk about life there after performing. But once we kind of got into the real discussions, performing was really the only thing that was being addressed. And then it was Hunter's idea to put us together. I think Kyle and I banked on probably doing some tag stuff, but them making us a trio, because at that time Roddy was doing his own thing. But them making us a trio was, when it was first presented to us, I was honestly waiting for somebody to come in and tell us that it was a joke, that it was a rib, because that was what we would have asked for if we knew we had that option. But that was Hunter's idea, and it couldn't have gone better.
So cool. I agree that it couldn't have, just from a fan's perspective, it couldn't have gone any better. And TakeOver Brooklyn, of course, your debut on McIntyre with Adam Cole. I was there live for that. The reaction was insane. The entire way home on the subway, everyone was doing Adam Cole, baby, until, we couldn't even think anymore. Definitely freaking out the people who didn't go to the show when the whole subway's pulling up and all these fans are chanting. But I was just curious what that was like for you as well. And if Triple H had any input with that, with your debut, what your feelings were with such a capacity crowd at TakeOver.
It was, and it continued with all the takeovers. Like, I feel like that was a timeline. Our time with NXT will just always kind of be crystallized in my memory of just a window when NXT, when pro wrestling was awesome, and when NXT was the place you wanted to be. And those takeovers, all of them, but especially Brooklyn being our first one, it was just, it was the closest I can remember anything being to where it felt like, you were on drugs. Like, it was just a visceral buzz within your body that didn't seem like it was possible without some sort of artificial means influencing it. Some of those, especially Brooklyn being the first one, and your nerves, especially, like, you don't know if, because Kyle and I did our run-in earlier in the show. You're thinking to yourself, like, are any of these people going to know who the fuck we are? Like, Ring of Honor had some reach and some point, New Japan and whatever. But I think that when it's easy for people to look at it from the outside and see, like, oh yeah, of course. But when it's you, it's very difficult to see yourself as that, like, and to be confident, because I think we all live with our own insecurities, but, like, to be confident that like, yeah, they're not going to fart on this. Like, they're going to know who we are, and they're going to be happy to see us pissed to see us or whatever, there's going to be a reaction. We had no guarantee of that, you know. So looking back at it now, it's kind of easy. But in that moment, man, I remember Kyle was standing in front of me and we were waiting for our cue to go out and just, you know, making eye contact with each other, like feeling all the things, you know, the anticipation, the nerves, you know, this is going to be the best night of our lives, or this is going to be a fucking disaster and we're going to quit wrestling.
Dom, were you there for that, with it being in Brooklyn? I'm curious.
No, I was there when the new debuted, but I wasn't there that year.
Oh, shame on you.
Not too far from there. I live probably like a half mile from there.
Yeah. Cool venue. Very cool venue.
Very cool. Actually, so one year we actually had the ring rental for this rapper ASAP Rocky. So he does this thing for his fallen friend, Yams Day. And we had a ring rental for that concert. So we put a ring in the Barclays Center. And my friend Gabe got to wrestle one of his trainers with ASAP Rocky and his whole entourage, and me and my tag partner and our friends like surrounding the ring in front of like 20,000 people. And it was pretty cool. I didn't get to wrestle, but just getting to feed off that energy, I mean, it was infectious, and I could totally see why we chased this. For the only independent wrestling match to ever happen at the Barclays Center.
And you were there for it. That's so cool. That's a really cool experience.
It was like dreamlike. Yeah.
Well, Bobby, you were talking a lot about Triple H being brilliant, and as someone who's so successful during those, as you just said, like that era, that black and gold time period for NXT, I'm curious what your opinion is on him taking over creative for WWE as a whole, because you got to experience that on that nice scale of NXT.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm just happy to see things seem to, you know, be working out there in a more harmonious way at the moment. When I left, there was a lot of transition. So, you know, it's never fun to see people that you've worked with and that you're friends with and that you care about their success, or just their day-to-day, you know, even some like office people, medical staff, whatever. Like, you make friends with these people over the years, so you want to see them in a good work environment and enjoying themselves. And we certainly all were at that time when we were there, and Hunter was, you know, the head coach or quarterback or whatever you want to call it. And then those things changed and things got a bit wonky there. I left after my release, so I can't really speak firsthand. But to know that there's a chance now with Hunter back doing his thing there, that things could return or maybe become something entirely new and different, but under him, I just can't see anything in the wrestling business that he's got a hand in that's not going to be successful. And I'm obviously biased and partial to the man, but you know, I would go to war for him 7 days a week, twice on the
Dominic, you have any opinions on it overall as a watcher, obviously somebody in the business who's rising right now?
It's just a beautiful time, man. It's the start of a new chapter, you know. And like he said, I love that black and gold era of NXT and everything that, you know, Triple H has done with it. And I'm so fortunate enough to be able to go into this new era and aspire to maybe one day, you know, reach that level under his tutelage, you know. So this is definitely a dawn of a new age, and I'm looking forward to seeing what it has to bring.
Definitely. And to go off that, Dom, someone specific I wanted to bring up was William Regal, because I heard you paraphrase him on a podcast along the lines of that if you don't work hard enough, there's not going to be food on your plate when you get home. I heard you say that. And I just want to know if he's not one of the people you looked up to, then who are those people? But is it William Regal for you? Is that one of those people?
It's definitely one of them, yes. And I was actually quoting him from a seminar that I did. I actually was fortunate enough to sit in for free, that Gabe Sapolsky ran for Evolve, that they held at my school. And William Regal came and he did like a 4-hour seminar, just speech.
Oh, that's awesome.
They got into matches. And yeah, he just talked knowledge all day. And I think what you were going at is how heels try to cheat in front of the ref and bury the ref. That's what I was getting at with that, and how like you're doing this and pin to intent and don't cheat in front of the ref because we're, you know, if we do this we get disqualified, and if we get disqualified we don't eat because we don't get that salary cap. And I think that's what I was really getting at in that podcast. But yes, William Regal. That guy is a gem, and I'd be fortunate enough to be under his learning tree one day as well.
Along with him, who are some of the other ones that you look up to in your career?
Malenko, big fan of Malenko and Eddie Guerrero, of course, the Dynamite Kid, Benoit, Kurt Angle, Shawn Michaels, Bret Hart, you know, all the greats.
Great people to look up to. Bobby, for you, you're no stranger to William Regal, and of course, everything you did with him in NXT, with him being the GM there. Is he someone that you go to in AEW now?
For sure. Mr. Regal is somebody whose friendship I appreciate, and having worked with him and him being such a big part of getting us to NXT to begin with. I'm just forever grateful, and being a kid that watched him for all those years. You know, if somebody had said to me that I'd have this sort of rapport with him later in my life, I'd have been like, oh, come on. You know, it's just,
right.
So it's really see some of that stuff come full circle like that, you know?
No, absolutely. I mean, I feel like I could see you too in a Blackpool. I know you're set right now, but the Blackpool Combat Club seems like it would be up your alley.
Yeah, you know, and again, I'm biased. I think there's some money left on the table for me and Brian to hook it up a few more times. I think Kyle and Moxley was quite a spirited contest. Claudio, before, like in my career before NXT and even before Ring of Honor and stuff, really like had a few encounters with Claudio. I mean, the talent level of the three guys that I just mentioned, and I'll say four because, you know, including Kyle. Yeah, there's some interesting stuff there. I think that we could scratch the surface of. But yes, if this were another life, maybe I could be Blackpool Combat Club material. But I'll stick with my boys.
I feel like it's always going to end like that. I don't think there's ever any tearing you guys apart. Even if you did, I think there'd be an eventual turn, but that's a long way in the future. But you know, awesome segue here for a match at the Undisputed Era. Of course, you guys made it famous, but I think William Regal probably cemented it in a lot of people's minds. That being War Games, Undisputed Era in 4, which is just crazy. And I'm sure that was I've heard you say it was a dream match, something you grew up watching. And just, could you take us through that first moment you found out you were going to be in a War Games match in general, that they were bringing it back?
Yeah, I mean, I knew that Sean and Hunter and those guys were fans of a similar time frame of the NWA, which would eventually become WCW. But the NWA, like the Crockett years, That was stuff. And I was a pro wrestling fan, my whole young life, but it was like my teenage years when I found that stuff, and I saw Dusty Rhodes, and I saw Arn and Tully and the Road Warriors and the Great Muta for the first time, like that. I really it just turned the pro wrestling world upside down for me, because I was like, wait a second, it can be like this, and you can see blood on Saturday mornings like this. What? So knowing that Hunter and Sean were such big fans of that same era, and I literally wore out the VHS tapes of the War Games as a kid. So for them to be bringing it back, and then for us to be kind of the hand-picked group from Hunter, knowing that Hunter was such a fan of the Horsemen, and then Hunter and Sean being, part of DX, and knowing that there may be even an outside remote chance that was somewhat of the conversation that they had about putting us together, and putting us together, was real. Like we were all, and we are still to this day, truly all friends like that. Like none of that was manufactured. So for those to be in place, and then to do the War Games on top of that, and for us to become synonymous with the new introduction of War Games, again, surreal. Like didn't seem, if somebody had told me that, as a kid, I'd have been like, no, you're out of your mind. That's crazy.
It definitely seems, far-fetched, right? With it being like just such a legendary thing for them to bring back in the new age of wrestling. Dom, did you see those War Games matches?
Oh yes, I've watched them. I haven't watched them recently, but I've seen them in the past.
Yeah,
I went back and watched all the catalogs.
Dream match for Bobby, as we said. Are there dream matches for you, Dom, in your career?
I mean, on the independents or somebody that's signed?
We'll say, current dream matches, somebody that's signed.
Somebody that's signed?
Yeah.
Bobby Fish.
Called it out.
Good job, W.
They say we look alike, but I really don't see it.
It's hard to see around this mustache.
I think that's what it was. When I had the beard, everybody used to call me Bobby Fish. They would stop me every show and they'd be like, hey, man, you look like Bobby Fish. And I was like, thanks for telling me. But you know what? That guy told me, and that guy just told me. So why don't you just go screw yourself?
We were.
Now
I was going to say,
Rich.
Davey Rich. That's what I was going to say. Bobby, also, your mustache is looking good.
Oh, thank you. Well, my wife's a barber, so I can't take credit for this grooming.
Oh, it's not an AEW job backstage or anything like that? That's all your wife?
Oh, this is home. This is my wife, 100%.
Final question for the NXT days for you, Bobby. Are you happy with the way that the Undisputed Era finally came to a close? So much history there, but did you guys want it to end the way that it did?
No, God, no. I just think that things were very transitional there at the time, and I don't think anybody anticipated the bottom falling out of just the world that NXT was at that time. And I don't want to speak for the powers that be, but I don't think I think what ended up happening there was very unseen. We were no exception to that. We got caught up in that backdraft as well. And I just think that they broke us up. They didn't know what to do with us at that point. There were some injuries to all of us at different times. And they were trying to give a fresh coat of paint to things. And what are you going to do when you've had a group that's been together as long as we were? Like, the natural option would be at some point to break them up. I don't think it was the best move, but that's pro wrestling, I mean, hindsight's always 20/20,
right?
And most people involved would agree that it was didn't turn out to be the best move, but nobody knew that when we did it.
Oh, you couldn't foresee it. I think you just hit a year in AEW, right? Something along that.
Yeah, I'll be a year next month.
Next month. Wow. Well, congratulations on that, definitely. And I've heard you say how much you enjoy it, how it's doesn't even feel like showing up to work. What are those things that make it so special, and if it differs at all from WWE?
It's definitely different from WWE. In some ways, it's night and day. Some of that good, some of that bad. It's just different, you know. I think that there are great things that went on in NXT. There are great things that go on in AEW. I think the biggest thing for me is with WWE, you know, the bubble that you hear people talk about, that's real. Like when you're there, like it's hard not to get swept up in just WWE. So there were a lot of people that I had history with over the years, you know, whether it be New Japan or Ring of Honor or whomever, that I had worked with and got used to seeing on a weekly or a monthly basis. And then I go to NXT and I don't see those people anymore. And that was, you know, for the better part of 4 years. So going back and I'm seeing them again. And that's nice. That always makes work a more attractive place to be.
And yeah, I'm happy you're enjoying it. I really am. What can we expect from the future? As I just said, the assault last night. Really, just keep our eyes on you three.
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna let that. We stirred it up last night, and we're gonna see where the dust settles now. And then we've got a couple things in our back pocket that, you know, will be implemented when the time is right, or maybe they'll stay in the back pocket for a bit longer.
I'm excited to see whatever you guys choose to do with it. Dominic, it's awesome having you on here and learning a bit about you. And I would like to know just, and if you could tell us all, just what are some future goals you have long-term or short-term that we should keep our eyes out for?
Well, I'm in the process of getting my passport, so I would love to get out of the country sometime in 2023. And like I told you earlier, I just love to hit more states. If I can get a new state every other month, I'd be happy. And just travel more with the people that I care in this business, and just create memories.
Where would be the first place you go once you get that passport?
It'd probably be Canada because I have a couple connections up there.
Really cool goals to have, and you know, best of luck. The passport, it's a bit of a hassle, but it'll come, right?
Oh yeah, it's still a bit of work.
Yeah, right. Well, Bobby, final question for you is if you have any advice for Dom. You've given great advice so far, really, really good advice, but any lasting words?
My advice would definitely be just to keep doing it. Like, I don't think any reps, you had mentioned before, I don't remember the name of the place, but that they were only drawing like 20 people. And like what I found over the years was some of those shows that you're not taking serious because there's 20 people in the building, and take it serious, there's a benefit there because you're relaxed, you're not nervous. So like a different thing can kind of come out of you at that point. And I don't think there can be a wasted rep, you know. There's only so much expediting of this learning process when it comes to pro wrestling that I think every rep that you can get with an opponent and an audience, and that can be an audience of 10,000 or an audience of 10. It's still an audience. There's something that even if it's one thing out of 20 minutes that you pull from it, it's one thing more than you had in the tool belt prior to that. So I feel like there's no wasted reps. So just gobble up as many reps as you can get. Obviously, get what you're worth, you know, get paid. These promoters that try to get people to work for a hot dog and fuck them.
Yeah.
they're doing.
Put my foot down in that aspect this past year.
But I at the same time, you gotta balance out what's worth the pay cut and what's not. And like I truly believe there's no such thing as a wasted rep.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that insight. I appreciate it.
Of course. Thanks for listening.
So thank you both. I mean, it's been really fun. That brings us to the end. But really, thank you both for being here. This was really cool to sit in on this.
Thanks, man. Yeah, appreciate it. It was fun.
Rewind, recap, relive. For over 50 episodes, the revolutionary force in wrestling interview.